I have been interacting with owners of small businesses, entrepreneurs having large setup as well as farmers having small landholding yet exhibiting entrepreneurship for several years. My samples are drawn largely from Africa. While entrepreneurial literature is full of traits that are needed to be a successful entrepreneur, not much has been researched and written about the dark underbelly of entrepreneurship. In this presentation, I would like to dwell upon these based on our research. The first dark side of entrepreneurship, if you will, is the need to have excessive control on everything around the business, which, while it is natural to micromanage when the business is in its infancy, this tendency to manage and control everything takes firm root and becomes an obsessive compulsive behavior even when the business has grown big. This also results in having suspicion about everyone else working for them. In one of the large garment export house employing several thousand workers across different geographies, I noticed the owner relying on few chosen peons to carry the gossip about people. He would often indulge in pitting one group of officers against the other. And the worst part was that he relied on the gossip and acted upon them. No one in the factory felt safe or comfortable in such an atmosphere. People who are overly concerned about being in control also have little tolerance for subordinates who think for themselves. In organizations, the desire for control can lead to extreme behavior. For instance, an owner manager needing to be informed about even the most minute operations of the company. To elaborate, the same owner, through his IT system, had access to every employee's email, and he spent a good amount of time reading their personal emails. Closely related to the need for control is a proclivity towards suspicion of others. What makes some of the entrepreneurs I have known stand out as extreme examples has been their strong distrust for the world around them. They live in fear of being victimized. They want to be ready should disaster strike. Paradoxically, quite a few I have worked with feel best when their fortunes are at their lowest, when at the top of the success wave, they imagine themselves incurring the envy of others. So, not to tempt the wrath of gods, when people ask them how things are, they respond by saying that business is only so so, not too bad. But if their fortunes turn and they're close to bankruptcy, it is as if they have paid the price, done their penance for having been successful. Because it produces a sense of relief, their predicament can have a positive effect. With the alleviation of anxiety, they have the energy to start anew, which they do with enthusiasm and a sense of purpose. Few entrepreneurs oscillate from lack of communication and too much of talking, not sharing ideas, or sharing too much. Both are recipes for disaster. Ability to withstand success and, more importantly, failures differ from individual to individual, and this has a significant bearing on entrepreneurial behavior. Too much of success in too short time makes them feel like Alexander the Great. This euphoria propels them to take foolhardy risks in business. A kind of gambler personality, if you will, takes over, and I have seen few indulging in nefarious, manipulative activities to sustain their growth. In this context, a case of an IT czar comes to my mind. He started with a good setup by recruiting smart programmers and backed few prestigious projects. His urge to grow internationally was so high that he started opening offices in different countries with the same brand name but as separate entities. The profits thus earned from his overseas earnings went to his personal account. However, using this money, he ganged up with few speculative traders in stock market to artificially jack up his share price. One day the bubble burst and he landed up in jail. Another well-known entrepreneur of a large coffee chain borrowed a lot of money to expand his business, took too much of risk in the process, did not share this with his associates, kept even his wife in the dark, and finally committed suicide. Another problem in this context is the ever changing goals and aspirations that constantly puts the pressure and limits satisfaction. I have personally known cases of few phenomenally successful entrepreneurs who have major problems of insomnia and have to swallow pills all the time. To complicate matters, such individuals also get into the trap of denying reality and tend to portray a very happy picture of themselves. I knew a successful entrepreneur who had set up a business empire that was talked about everywhere. He had major issues at home and also had to face a lot of business rivalry from jealous people. But outwardly, he never displayed signs of tension. This contrasting lifestyle resulted in his untimely brain hemorrhage and death. In such a complicated and stressful scenario, the first casualty is the work life balance. Many entrepreneurs have not so happy family life as their preoccupation with business gets skewed completely. It also takes a toll on their physical health. Worse still, they start suffering an oscillation between hypomania and anxiety attacks. Let me dwell here about hypomania. Constant mood swings are a prominent feature of hypomania. Entrepreneurs who suffer from this become euphoric and develop momentary sense of well-being. They feel unbounded energy. They become suddenly highly creative or bohemian if you will and full of ideas, and the result of this become irritable with others for the lack of it. Their self-esteem and confidence reach unrealistic levels. Many a times this also results in promiscuous affairs as it boosts their ego. They cannot relax and develop a psychologically loud behavior. Because of these feelings and sensations, their behavior gets manifested differently. They start taking risks which normally a prudent person should not take. Marital infidelity, as I mentioned, happens most often. They start talking a bit too much, become expansive and indulge in overcommitment. Often they write in a convoluted way about hopes and aspirations in their tweets and Facebook postings. They become fidgety and restless with details. In a meeting, their stance often is to order others to finish their point in 2 minutes. They have difficulty to read lengthier documents, ideal situations to make serious errors of judgment. I have observed few entrepreneurs suffering from narcissism. What is narcissism? It is extreme self involvement to the degree that it makes a person ignore the needs of those around them. While everyone may show occasional narcissistic behavior, true narcissists frequently disregard others or their feelings. They also do not understand the effect that their behavior has on the other people. Such people spend most of the time talking about themselves and their achievements. They stop listening to feedbacks and what others may have to say. Wasting their and others' time in boastful talks becomes their favorite pastime of business. I have described some of the dark side of entrepreneurship. The cases I have outlined here are extreme, though most of the relationships between entrepreneurs and their employees do not deteriorate that much. For one thing, many countervailing forces, institutions, government, banks, and a person's health and good judgment prevent excesses. Most entrepreneurs sense a reality prevents things from getting out of hand. What's the solution? We must realize that any business scenario is fraught with many unknown variables. Developing what I call a helicopter attitude is one way to avoid the trap of hypomania or anxiety. Metaphorically, this ability helps us to be on the penthouse, to have the aerial view or vision, as well as to be in the basement, which is day to day working seamlessly. One should have or cultivate detached attachment or attached detachment, if you will, with business. Our self efficacy needs to be constantly checked and improved. This implies that we develop the ability to judge our actions impersonally and continuously ask why we are doing what we are doing. Such an approach is possible if we learn to reflect, introspect, and meditate regularly. We must keep aside a certain portion of our time for serious reflection, introspection, and corrective actions on a daily basis. This equanimous personality style will surely help us to avoid the trap of hypomania and anxiety and depression. I have also observed that those who discuss their business problems openly with their family members are often at peace with themselves and others, and those who keep things to themselves have that pent up emotions in themselves. In our ancient Indian text, Gita, Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has expounded on the definition of Sthita Prajna. What is Sthita Prajna? Meaning of Sthita Prajna? One who is at peace himself and with the whole world. And Lord Krishna says, when one discards all selfish desires and cravings of the sense that torment the mind and becomes satisfied in the realization of the self, such a person is said to be transcendently situated. It is important for us, in conclusion, to understand our limitations and our possible reach. A critical analysis of our strengths and weaknesses will help us define our goals in a realistic manner. Thank you very much.